Would you risk leaving behind a life of wealth and sophistication in a major metropolis for nothing more than a vague promise to go to a land I will show you? That's exactly what we're exploring today with the fascinating story of Abram.
You know what's incredible about this? Archaeological evidence shows Ur wasn't just any city. We're talking about two-story villas with 14 rooms, advanced architecture that wouldn't be matched for over 1,000 years.
And right in the center of this incredibly advanced civilization stood this massive step pyramid, the ziggurat of Ur, towering 100 feet above the courtyard, even predating the Egyptian pyramids. This was the cultural and religious heart of Abram's world.
So, what would make someone walk away from all that security and sophistication?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. The text tells us God simply appears to Abram and says, "Go." No detailed map, no specific timeline, just this promise of future blessing. It's like getting a job offer with no salary details or office location.
Hmm. And what's fascinating is how human his response is. He doesn't just immediately become this perfect example of faith.
Exactly. He takes these halting steps. First, he stops halfway at Haran, instead of going straight to Canaan. Then he brings along Lot and all these possessions that end up causing problems later. It's like he's trying to maintain some control while still following this divine calling.
And then there's that whole situation in Egypt. Talk about a crisis of faith.
Oh man, that's where things get really messy. Here's this man supposedly following divine guidance, and what does he do? Gets so scared that Pharaoh might kill him to take his wife that he asks her to pretend to be his sister instead.
You know what's ironic about that whole episode? The pagan pharaoh ends up showing more moral clarity about marriage than Abram does in that moment.
Right. When Pharaoh discovers the truth, he's absolutely indignant, repeats the word wife 4 times in his rebuke. But here's what I find fascinating: God doesn't abandon Abram, even when he messes up this badly.
That really speaks to the nature of God's faithfulness versus human faithfulness, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and it connects to something bigger. These promises God makes to Abram aren't conditional. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great. The emphasis is entirely on God's action, not Abram's performance.
And looking at how this has played out historically is remarkable. The Jewish people, Abram's descendants, have had this outsized impact on human history that far exceeds their numerical size.
You know what missionary Jim Elliot said that captures this perfectly? He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain that which he cannot lose. From the world's perspective, Abram was being foolish, but from God's perspective, he was embracing the deepest wisdom.
That really captures the paradox at the heart of faith. What looks like risk from one perspective is actually the path to true security.
And think about the cultural context. The world of Abram's time was dominated by polytheism and the idea that gods were tied to specific territories. But here's God calling Abram to leave his homeland and trust that this God would be with him wherever he went.
Well, that must have seemed completely countercultural, maybe even nonsensical to people at the time.
And you know what? That's still the challenge we face today. Will we trust promises we can't fully see? Will we let go of our carefully constructed security to embrace something bigger? The story of Abram shows us it's not about perfect performance. It's about continuing to move forward, even when the path isn't clear.
So, in the end, what makes this story so powerful isn't just the historical significance, but how it speaks to that universal human experience of stepping into the unknown.
Exactly. And that's why this ancient story still resonates. Whether it's changing careers, moving to a new city, or taking any major life step, we all face moments where we have to decide, will we stay in our comfortable or will we step out into the unknown?